Hey there, and welcome to another Vibrant Music Teacher Chat. This is your home on YouTube for the latest music teacher news and goings on, as well as a weekly discussion on a topic that's relevant to you in your private music studio. If you haven't met me yet, hello, welcome. My name is Nicola Canton. I'm a piano teacher over in Dublin in Ireland, and I run this YouTube channel, obviously where you are right now, but I also run Vibrant Music Teaching, which is a membership for music teachers, and the Colourful Keys blog. So if you are new here, say hi to us. You're very welcome, and we love to see you, and say hi to all the newbies and the returning people who come back every single week as well. We've got a great community going here. So today's special topic is grit and growth mindset, and I've also got tons of fun news to share with you guys. So yeah, let's dive into the news, shall we? Okay, we'll start with me. What have I been working on? Well, you may be noticing, feels a bit egocentric somehow to say this, but you may have noticed that I'm dressed more casually than usual today. And I also have been tossing around Steve. Sorry if he's making a noise, but Steve wanted to come along today because I'm wearing his, let me step back, brand new sweatshirt, which is in honor of Steve. It is a Steve shape, and he's making a special heart. It's almost true to size. It's a little bit bigger than Mr. Steve right here. If you're not familiar with Steve, by the way, he's my little mascot and technique assistant. And yeah, he helps me out around the studio. That's his whole job. So Steve wanted a jumper in his honor. And as part of putting together this sweater and a few other things that we have going on, I also moved the shop. So this is the first news that I want to give to you guys. Because this used to be on a different shop system, I've now moved it and integrated it with our theory books and everything that's sold on the Colourful Keys store. So I'm going to show you what that looks like and where that is, okay? So it's at colourfulkeys.ie/shop. Yes, because I don't say store, I say shop, so that's where it lives. And this is it, right? Not that, right here. So this is the Colourful Keys store. Have a look around, see what you think. This is the new Steve sweatshirt right here. Oops. Mouse happy. Let me know what you think of this. And yeah, whether you like the look of it, whether it's your style, or whether it's not. We have lots of other stuff there. I'm excited to be integrating this with everything else we do, because it means you can order the two together and it's just all in one spot. We originally brought in the swag store, oh my gosh, that was just last year. Feels like already forever ago, but it was just last year, and when we brought it in, I decided to do it in a different place. It does say just one thing, Laurie. That is exactly what it says. So just one thing with stops. I can give you a little zoom in right there. So it says just one thing. And it's actually coral, orange and coral, so it's a mixture of colours that right there. And I will assure you that it is extremely cozy, and I have washed and worn this again, so it's definitely holding up really well. I always like to test these things before I add them for you guys. So it doesn't say J dot, by the way, it's just one thing rather than just do one thing, because that was a better fit for this particular sweater. We tend to interchange those right here. So yeah, that is the new guy. There's a couple of other new things. Oh, I'm so glad you're enjoying the theory books, Janine. Thank you. So glad you like those. Awesome stuff. Okay, so few other new things right here. And there may be more on the way soon, but already some other fun stuff. So we've got 2 stickers added in. These are just little fun things. So we've got our VMT Flamingo now. It's a sticker. I don't have this to show you on camera, but this is a sticker. It's like 4 inches tall, so 10 centimeters tall. And then same thing with the Steve. These are really nice vinyl ones, so they're like the shiny kind that hold up really well. And that's Steve. He's also 4 inches tall in that sticker right there. And then we have one new mug. So we've had this Black Magic one for a while, which I can show you in a second. I have it physically here. And then we have a new one, which is the Find Your Balance mug. So that's brand new. And as I said, these are all at colourfulkeys.ie/shop now. These are not, well, a couple of them are new, but just in different colorways. So this t-shirt and this t-shirt have been around a while, but I changed the colorways available. And I also did change what I call them. So I now call this the Fortissimo one, and the other one is the white print, which is the Pianissimo one. So yeah, this is a new colorway, the oatmeal. And then, And then the other t-shirt is this guy right here. And we've had the grey one for a while. There's a photo of me in that, if you're curious what it looks like on a real teacher, I guess. This is a real person as well. But yeah, the new one is the black colorway on this, a charcoal black, so it's like a very dark grey. So that guy is new as well. But yeah, they're now available under our Colourful Keys store, so it's that little bit handier. Okay, so any questions about that, let me know, but I wanted to fill you guys in and let you know where to find the swag these days. Okay, now, so that's the store. That's part of my news. What else have I been doing? I've been recording tons of YouTube videos, so expect to see those soon. And then we released a new podcast episode also about growth mindset. It's called Gateway to Growth Mindset for Piano Students. We released a fantastic guest post as well from Dr. Catherine Pers, which is, she is not a teacher. She is actually someone we knew, and she agreed to put together this post for us because she is a psychologist, and so she's giving her perspective on reinforcement from completely outside the studio. So I was really excited about that one. I think it's a really interesting read. And then we've got a new YouTube last week with practice mistakes that lots of adult students make. And yeah, sorry, that's all our releases. We don't need any more. But I also wanted to share with you a great podcast I listened to over the weekend. So one of the podcasts that I listen to regularly is 99% Invisible. And on that one, the most recent or might have been a couple of episodes old, but anyway, a recent episode of that is about the real book and the origins of the real book. And if you haven't heard that story, even if you had, I knew most of the gist of it, but it's a really beautifully produced podcast, so it's great to listen to all the same. And yeah, there were little bits of that story that I didn't know, and so I loved hearing that. Did anyone else catch it? I would love to hear from you guys. This is the mug, the Black Magic mug, as I mentioned. Hello, camera. Okay, so that's the one I mentioned to you guys. It is heat changing, right? So it's hot right now. I have tea in it. But when it gets cool, it goes back to black. So it's quite fun. And now we have that in the Find Your Balance version as well. Brenna! Yeah, it's awesome, right? So good. Such a beautiful show. Oh, that's interesting about the volume, Renee. Last few months is confusing to me. If it's quiet for you, it should have been quiet forever, for a really long time. But I'm actually, or maybe changing some of the setup around here, so I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, so that is the latest news around and about here. That is at the max. Yeah, that's my news around here. But let me let you in on some sneak peeks at what's coming up soon. Okay, so coming up soon, next week. Okay, I thought that might happen. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put back. Okay, we might be fixed on a couple of things now. Sorry for the tech issues today, guys. I had my battery in my camera, and I meant to change it to a dummy battery. And as soon as we started the broadcast, I was like, oh, I meant to change that, and I physically can't do it while also running the camera. So that's what happened there. I also may have increased the volume a little bit while I was at it because I thought I would try and help you guys out. Okay, maybe that's better. If not, I will look into it for next week. Okay, let's get back on track, shall we? Next week's chat, we were doing our sneak peeks. So next week's chat is going to be about motivation mistakes that all of us make, that piano teachers make. Okay, so it's going to be about pitfalls and issues that a lot of us run into. And I think that's going to be a really interesting one to chat about with you guys. And then we have a webinar coming up at the end of the month, our latest masterclass, which is going to be about developing grit in our students and a little bit on growth mindset as well there. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Okay, wonderful. Volume fixed. Crisis averted. No crises here. As I always say, there's no such thing as a piano teaching emergency, and while I appreciate all of your time and I do my best to be prepared, these things do happen. Okay, so that's our news and our sneak peeks. Let's get into our main discussion about growth mindset. Alrighty, so growth mindset. I thought we would start by just talking about some basic terms, just in case anyone has anything that they are afraid to ask about or aren't sure what we're talking about. So I thought we'd start with our terminology. First of all, let's talk about extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. How would you guys define this in the chat in a colloquial way, not in a textbook definition way? But what do you think it means to have extrinsic or intrinsic motivation? Sometimes I feel that the extrinsic motivation can be sort of demonized in the piano teaching world or in the music teaching world or in teaching in general. And it's not always helpful the way that it's talked about, because I think there's a gradient here, and I think there's a lot we need to consider when it comes to extrinsic motivation and kids. So let's just talk about what it means first of all. Extrinsic motivation is where you're motivated by something outside of yourself, and intrinsic motivation is where you're motivated entirely from yourself. And it's a very simplistic way of looking at it, and really when we break things down, most things are actually external in many ways, you know? Can you give me an example in the chat of something that is entirely intrinsically motivated? It's actually hard to find things where no one can nitpick at it and say some aspect of it is external, that you're actually being motivated from the outside, right? Let me know what you guys think. Yeah. Do you think you were intrinsically motivated growing up as a student? And do you think that's a realistic expectation for your students? I think there's different types of extrinsic motivation, and some are better than others. Gift giving. That's an interesting one, Christy. Here's the thing, and I don't want this to sound wrong, but people actually get pleasure and reward in many ways from charity and from giving gifts. So, and many people do it to receive the acknowledgement back. I mean, they don't do it purely for that, but it's a mix, right? If you gave something to someone and they said absolutely nothing about it, would you want to give them another present in the future? Intrinsic, Lydia. Learning to play a piece for the pure enjoyment instead of to perform for someone else. Yes, for sure. But that is rarer than... Not that I don't do that, but I think it's rarer, especially in younger students, isn't it? And sometimes I think we strive for this intrinsic motivation, pure intrinsic motivation, as if it's some kind of gold standard. And I think it's more nuanced than that. Yeah, and that certainly is it for me, Sarah. If I sit down at the piano and I just play through volume after volume of arrangements or nocturnes or something like that, that's purely just for me and just for fun. Yeah. Okay, so that's extrinsic motivation. Like, clarify some of what that means, because we need that term going forward. Now let's look at growth mindset. What do you guys think growth mindset means? And are you familiar with the term so far? I know it's fairly popularized, but I still do meet people quite regularly who are like, what's that? So, there's never any judgment here. If you haven't heard of growth mindset, it is a term invented, I think, but at least popularized by Carol Dweck. And she did a lot of research into it and published a book about it. And the idea of growth mindset is the understanding that you can get better. That's the basic way of saying it. So, I'll give you an example. If I had a fixed mindset, that's the opposite. If I had a fixed mindset and I go and take a maths test, I take the maths test and I get 55%. Okay, I get 55% and afterwards I give up on maths entirely because I say, well, I'm just not good at maths. Now, if that's a fixed mindset, if I had a growth mindset, I would say, oh, well, I need to improve at this. I better look at some extra resources. So it's that ability to believe that you can get better, right? Yes, change I can't do it to I can't do it just yet. Yes, and it's harder than it seems, or there are ways we can work on this with students, but certainly some students naturally have this perspective and some don't. And who knows whether it's entirely their upbringing or other experiences they've had, or it is a natural inbuilt thing, or it's a mixture of both. It's probably a mixture, right? But if you have this growth mindset, you're much more likely to succeed because you believe that you can get better. Simple as that. That your abilities are not fixed. And part of this is why I hate this word talent, because I believe it's a very fixed mindset concept. Now, some people say talent and they mean skill, and that's a different thing. When I say talent, and I believe when most people use that word, they mean natural talent, like that is in your genes, in your bones somehow, and that's a very fixed mindset perspective, in my opinion. Brenda, that's related, but that's not really growth mindset, is it? Being okay with initial frustration at learning a new skill. That is really more to do with our next one. And our next term we want to define here, and then we're done with definitions and unpacking words, is grit. And this really leads on from growth mindset. Grit is a term that comes from the work of Angela Duckworth, who was a big fan of and mentored by Carol Dweck. Okay, so one does lead from the other. They're both psychologists. Grit is passion and perseverance towards long-term goals. That is how Angela would define it. Passion and perseverance towards long-term goals. So grit is the thing, and growth mindset, because they're connected, but grit is the thing that I have. It is my one talent, as I often say, because I don't quit things. I'm not naturally very good at anything. That's the truth. And that's not me putting myself down. Like, that's just, I don't pick things up and instantly get them. I have 4 older brothers, but the one next in age to me, he is that way. Or at least that's always how it seemed. And I think he would probably agree with it, especially in terms of things like sports or physical skills. He'll just do it, right? He just picks it up and he gets it and off he runs. That's kind of how he works. But that is not me. I have to stick at things for a long time to get them. But the thing I do have, which I'm very grateful to have, is that grit. I believe that's just baked into me. I don't stop. If something is important to me, I just keep going. Yeah, Diane, that's a good example of how complicated this is, right? You can be an industrious student, which might be intrinsic, but that can be linked to a fear of failure, which is judged by others, which is extrinsic, yes. And even further than that, or even less than that in some ways, you could be an industrious student and people could think you're so intrinsically motivated, but you actually, the drive behind that student's motivation could be praise at the other side of it. It could be a good grade. It could be whatever, some other measure of achievement that drives them forward. And that is extrinsic. That's nothing they have built into themselves. We need to slowly develop this intrinsic motivation, or some degree of it, if we want our students to play for the rest of their lives, right? Otherwise, they're not going to. if their motivation is entirely outside of themselves and about achievements or grades or anything else, then they're not going to play for the rest of their life, because that will go away unless they become a performer and then they have this goal after goal after goal to strive forward to, like a performance or whatever. That's different. But if we want them just to be hobbyists and the best amateurs in the best meaning of the word, you know, the word amateur means for the love of it, basically. So if we want them to do it for the love of it, they have to love it internally and do it for that reason. So we need our students to be gritty, to stick at things, to have that growth mindset, to believe that if they stick at the thing, they will get better and they can do it. And we need to build up their intrinsic motivation over time. Yes, absolutely. But it's very hard to talk about long-term values in a meaningful way with a 5-year-old. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but we have to balance where we're at and what we're talking about. So let's talk about 2 sides that I believe will help us develop those 3 things, right? We've got this palette of things we want to develop. We don't want extrinsic motivation, we want intrinsic, but we want to strive in that direction, growth mindset and grit. So I think we can start this by priming our students' mindset. And the best way to do this, in my opinion, is, well, one of the ways we can do this is with games. So let me show you 3 of the games we have inside VMT at the moment. And this is a series of 8 that is going to be released, but I'm going to show you the first 3 that we already have up. So this is Yeti Yetters, which was already mentioned in the comments. Yeti Yetters is about the magic of the word yet and getting our students to understand yet, but we also use what I call hidden yet statements. And this has made a massive impact on my students. They've already started talking about this and changing some of their vocabulary through playing this with me a few times. So the idea in this game, it's a very simple game in terms of how it's run. It's just a matching game. They need to match non-yet or fixed statements with growth mindset or yet statements, right? So yes, it can be I can't do this versus I can't do this yet, but it can also be I'm not good at this versus this needs more practice, right? This needs more practice implies if I practice it, I will get there. So that's the first one. Carrie, so glad you're enjoying these. Yeah, I love them in our studio as well. We're having great fun with them. So that's yet. The other one we have is dragon distractions. This is more about mindfulness because I believe that's really interconnected with growth mindset, grit, being aware of your own thoughts and feelings and how they're affecting your practice in a kid-appropriate way. So in dragon distractions, they move gradually closer to the treasure, which is the present moment, or further away from it if they start thinking about the cards prompt them to think about other things other than what they're playing at that moment. So the goal is to stay focused on what you're actually doing. And how many of us could use more of that, right? When we're playing a piece, when we're practicing something, when we're teaching, that we don't start thinking about, or that we can bring ourselves back into the present moment when we do start thinking about what we're going to cook for dinner, or how much is on our to-do list, or anything else. And then the third one that we already have here is Hippogriff Gauntlet. So the Hippogriff, I love this Hippogriff. Some people find him too flamboyant, but I think he's fabulous. Just in terms of being an authentic Hippogriff. But in the Hippogriff Gauntlet, they're walking around a game board, and in this one they have to say they have to tackle challenges, right? So I'll show you inside this game, actually, the PDF. Here's some of the cards. So you open up a new piano piece and notice it has dynamics you've never seen before. So if a student turns over to that card, they need to say what's exciting about that? What's good about that challenge? Why are you excited to take it on? And how would you tackle it? And I've been really impressed with how my students do tackle these challenges, right? How they come up with good descriptions of what would be hard about it and what would be easy. And I have found a strong correlation. The students who can immediately latch onto these games and can tell me what the challenge is, why it is exciting, etc., etc., most of them tend to be the ones that I think have a reasonably good grasp of grit and growth mindset already. And the ones who struggle in this area, they do find it quite challenging to do this at first, which shows how relevant it is to me. And when we work on these games, they start to get better at it. And I've actually heard from parents that they've seen it make a difference. So that's wonderful. We had a strong focus on these games for a couple of months where I was really being very diligent about doing them with every student. For that whole week, I would do a particular growth mindset game with every student. And yeah, I really saw the impact of it in their practice. And I'm hoping it continues. And then we have those refreshers every so often. I'm not saying you would do this with every student every single week. It was just a particular focus that we had here for a few months. And then moving on from there, we can come back and do it at group classes and stuff like that. So, yeah. Let me know if you've used them. I know Carrie said she'd used them already. And Janine as well has used Yeti Yetters. I love that. That for me is about priming. Okay? So priming the mindset. You can do that through things like that and also through more general discussions that you have with your student, right? Then not the next stage, but at the same time, we also need to focus and put our students' attention on the right things, the more intrinsic parts of what they're doing. So let's say your student does work specifically for something. Let's say a competition they're going to take part in, right? So they work specifically for that. And they work really hard and they come 5th and they're really proud of that result, okay? When you get to the end of that, you have an opportunity there and you need to take it. And the opportunity is not to say, wow, you came 5th, that's so good, I'm so proud of you. The opportunity is to say, oh my gosh, when you started this, you found that sonatina really, really challenging. You struggled so much with that section over there and XYZ, right? And then to say, you came so far to get to this stage in this competition. To achieve that result of 5th, you had to put in all that work and you did all of that. So it's putting the emphasis back on what you did and the progress you've made and how good you feel to have made that progress instead of just the result. There's nothing wrong with getting that result, and that's part of the extrinsic intrinsic mix. But if we take the opportunity, we can focus back on the intrinsic aspects of that. And I think that is really helpful and that's really powerful. Let me know if you can think of another example of that. You understand these two things working together. Priming it and then focusing and paying attention after the fact. When we continuously do those two things in balance, one before, one after, and we're doing those concurrently all the way through, I believe we can make real strides with our students in terms of grit, growth mindset, and developing intrinsic motivation. But it takes a long time, and some students do take a lot longer than others. By the way, I didn't mention the Ask Me Anything section today, but if you do have questions about anything, you can put question in front of it, the comment, and then ask me the question, and I will get back to all of them. And you can ask questions about this as well. And I'd love to do some troubleshooting. Do you have any students who really just give up at the first sign of frustration? And what have you tried? I definitely have those students who, I get frustrated with their frustration. This is the one thing that ever annoys me or ever tests my patience, is when people just give up like that. Of any age. I'm not talking about 3-year-olds here. I'm talking about adult students who, they try something once and they're just immediately defeated with this attitude. That I find really difficult, and I have to recognize that in myself, because I don't ever feel like that. Sure, things are challenging and I might kind of, groan at them, but it would take me 10, 15 repetitions before I'd be annoyed at it. Do you know what I mean? But that's my natural, I guess, not mindset, but that's just my personality. That's who I am. So, anyway, it can be challenging, but it's good to recognize in yourself the things like that. And maybe it's not that at all for you, right? But something that you find easy or is natural to you that doesn't come naturally to other people. And knowing that you need to watch out for those moments when that flares up, and having strategies for dealing with it and walking them through it. Lydia, I had a beginner student tell me I can't do it in a lesson just last week, as soon as she saw the new page where we were starting in her book. Yeah. So if a student consistently does that, by the way, so first of all, if she just says I can't do it, you add yet to that, and maybe have a little chat with her about it, and you consistently talk with her about, oh, you thought you couldn't do this one, or you thought this was hard and now it seems much easier, etc., etc. But with the student who just shuts down at a new piece, one thing that's really useful is to be very conscious about how you prime them for that piece. So before you let them look at it, before you reveal that there's going to be a new piece, you work on the rhythm together, you work on the intervals, you work on any terms that are going to come up, you introduce all the aspects of the piece, and maybe even sing the tune, right? And then so when you open up the new piece, it's a matter of spotting all the things that we worked on already, spotting all the things that are already easy, right? If you do that again and again, she'll start to learn that new pieces aren't scary. Most of it is stuff you've already done in a more general sense, and you can build on it from there. Yeah, it is. It's definitely super challenging, Karen. I agree. But something we need to work on. And one of the reasons why I wanted to create that series, the Gritty Critter series, in VMT. And again, there are 5 more on the way. So it's going to be a really good series. There's one coming out each month. And together as a complete set, they have all these different aspects of growth mindset and grit to help your students to become stickier. Stick-to-itiveness, right? Yes, exactly, Lydia. Seek and find the things we already know, and make sure some of it that you've done like just before, so that you've already done the rhythm, you've already chanted the words, you've already sung it together, and then it's just like, oh, this is the thing, you know? Okay, beautiful. We're going to do our web reviews, and then we're going to come back and do a few more questions. So, let's dive over to our first studio website review. Let's go through our things we're looking for in these websites. We're looking for them to have enough text, a clear call to action, so tell us what to do, consistent branding, so the same colors, same couple of colors, same couple of fonts, that's it. Showcases you, the teacher in question, real photos of the teaching in action, and then a simple, dimple menu structure. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one and we'll see what we can check off the list and what we can help them to improve. Okay, so this is Port Macquarie Academy of Music. And right away, the thing that really feels missing to me here, ... is the call to action. This is sort of one, but it's not strong enough. I need a button. Like, that's fine, leave that there. But it should also be the same thing. Enroll now should be a big button in the center about there, right? And then the other thing that's missing for me on this homepage is text. It doesn't say anything. So, apart from if I'm a teacher looking to join the team, which is fine, but it shouldn't be the main text on the page because it's not the main person you're targeting, right? I know you're linking to all these pages, which are probably going to have more info, but you need to say something here, even if it's just a summary of each of these other pages. Let's go to drums, why not? Oh! Okay, that's confusing. So I'm going to close that. Does this link? No. Okay, it's just a photo. And it looks like it should be a link, like it looks like a card. So that's a bit confusing. This isn't a link either. They look like they should be links. So maybe you don't have pages for those? No, it doesn't look like you do. Okay, so I'd recommend a separate page, not linked in the menu, but just a separate page for each of these where you tell me about your approach to teaching drums, what to expect from lessons, why I should pick you. Same thing for piano, same thing for all of these, because otherwise I don't know anything about your approach, right, just from seeing that. And then after that, if you can get non-stock images, that I think would be great. There's a little bit about lessons here, but you need a lot more. And some info about you. This should be photos of people. These are fine, the photos of your studio, but I want to see Anne and Michael Russell. So can you add a photo of you two up the top, or one of each of you separately, etc., etc. Yeah, a lot more about the studio with photos, and then something about each of you separately. So it should be top bit about the studio, and then underneath that, Anne Russell, da 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 da, Michael Russell, da 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 da. If you have other teachers, something about them, right? Our teachers, yeah, so this is over here, and I'm expecting it to be also there. I actually don't even think you need a separate page. This is great. But I wouldn't say our teachers and then have just one teacher. So I would put this on the About Us page underneath About Anne Russell, proprietor, principal, teacher. And then if you have other info about the other teachers, that'd be great too. Okay, everything else is fine. So it's just way more text here. Separate pages with a few paragraphs about each of these and more photos. Testimonials if you can get them. And then the stronger call to action. Hope that gives you some food for thought. Congratulations on the website so far. It's looking great. Next one is Everyone Makes Music. So, okay, so we've got spring now accepting registrations, preschool students. I find the structure a little bit confusing here. One, like if this was up the top, that would make more sense to me, and then this further down. Spring is an excellent time, this stuff further down, but then a simple call to action at the top. A big button again to say, enroll, join us, that kind of thing. Yeah, I would just move those down, because I think it makes it look a bit bottom heavy. Okay. Okay, my question here is about who it's for. Because if this side is for parents, These are teacher things. It's fine to have this info here. It's just the menu labels that I find confusing, Ruth. So MLT, I'm a parent, I have no idea what that is. I might click on it, I might not. Mostly I just feel like this site is not for me. Music mind games kind of makes more sense instinctively, but still, like just learning through games. Are teaching philosophy, and then you explain how it's based on MLT, right? Okay, this is probably fine because it's your current student, so they'll know what you're talking about there. And then more isn't a great header, so can we make it I don't know, what is it? I would rethink that structure. Yeah, I think you need an extra menu item here, so you can have one that's FAQ or studio, about the studio, and then one that says voice. Yeah. Okay, but I think rejigging this page and putting a bit more text on it, again, that's the only actual text, right? Which is just, it's not enough content. So everything that's there is fine, just move that down, write something about what you do and why you do it, which could be a summary of these various things. Change some of the menu items around. Those would be my priorities there. Hopefully that's helpful. Right, let's get into our Ask Me Anything section. Righty-o, well, now, let me see here, make sure to get all the questions. So, Lydia, the webinar at the end of the month will be available to publicly to non-VMT members for 12 hours. We do 12 hours to accommodate different time zones. So it's really just supposed to be a live webinar for non-VMT members, but I want to be fair to the fact that some people are asleep. So we do a 12-hour limited time replay. If you sign up for it, you'll get access to that. Janine, yes, I absolutely use games with my teen students. A lot of them would be more advanced, so we'd be using the more advanced games, late intermediate, early advanced kind of level, but even if they're beginners, absolutely. Using the games is just a great way to learn. Wouldn't you prefer to learn with games? I would. I mean, if I'm going to take lessons, that's just me maybe, but if I'm going to come along to a lesson, I absolutely. And mostly I would because I would learn faster. So anything that helps us learn faster is a win in my book. And I think teachers can be nervous about doing that with adults or teens, but if you just go into it like they're not supposed to be embarrassed by it, it works fine. The problem comes when you say, oh, I know this is a little bit kiddie, but if you don't mind, we'll just do a game because I can't think of another way to teach this to you. So is it all right? Sorry about the ducks or whatever. You don't need to do any of that. You say, listen, games are great fun and I find them to be a great way to learn to play. We're going to play this quick game. It's going to help you learn this thing way easier than it would be if we just played the piece. All right? And then just go. Don't give it too much apology or explanation. I feel like that's a good mantra for life, right? How do you address students that equate difficulty with fun with something that... Oh, right. That equate... Okay, so equate ease with having fun, right? It's almost the opposite. Yeah. So, learning to enjoy the challenge is something that comes over a long time. And a big part of that is priming, all that priming we were doing, and the after the fact, when you do achieve something, you look back and you actually appreciate how you feel for having accomplished that. So literally having the out and out conversation where you're saying, look how far you've come, you did all this work to get here, and that's the reason you got to this stage with this piece, and it wouldn't feel as good if you hadn't put in the work. So yeah, you have to try and make it not too lectury and not go on for too long. But the more times you bring this up and get students to acknowledge that, yeah, it wouldn't feel as good if I didn't push myself. The other aspect of that is students will learn to work hard for something they really want to play. So if it's a student that's further along in their studies and they just don't want to put in the effort at all, either the thing is too hard for them, and that can absolutely be the case, or they don't actually want to play it that much. So if that's the case, they need different music. Does that make sense? Hopefully that helps. All right, I think that was all our questions. Thank you all so much for joining. It's been fun. Sorry about the technical hiccups, but hey ho, it happens. And it'll run smoother next time. That's how we move forward. I hope you all have a wonderful week ahead. Me and Steve are both wishing you a fabulous week. It's our first week back at teaching right here, so we're getting ready, and I hope you are too. And I'll see you back here next week. Bye everyone.